one of the things that we actually sacrificed for was for freedom of speech. And so it kind of renders that, if we're sacrificing for that, then what does that mean for our speech?
I definitely agree with you. When he went the nice route, people didn't really gravitate to it. So you gotta create controversy to basically get people to look at you. So now, after this is done, now I believe we're going back to the old ways, and we're just gonna get more people that way.
Yeah, definitely. But also, I've been looking on GitHub. I don't want to kind of jinx it by saying it, but I think we might be quite close. Like, I know that we all kind of said it before, but I it looks quite close, I think.
Yeah, everything's gonna launch pretty soon, faster than people think.
I guess Rich is going to have to launch it at the best possible time. But it's just, when is the best time? Is it good to launch it in a bear market rather than wait until the bull market kicks in?
Yeah, it's definitely perfect time to launch it is in the bear market because then we're going to attract all the attention that we need, and that's exactly what we want as the Pulse Chain community as a whole. If everything on that ecosystem, you want to attract the most attention. Basically, we want to make this whole bull market about Pulse Chain and the whole ecosystem around Pulse Chain, Hex, and Pulsex. And if we conquer that, that's our number one goal.
Yeah, I can't wait to have my hex stakes copied over, but I won't be selling for a while. I think I'll just be hodling, trying to accumulate as much as possible. I know some people are waiting to stake when Pulse Chain comes out, but I think it's better to stake now because then you get your copies and eventually it'll reach parity anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. And then the other thing I think we got to pay attention to is also kind of Ethereum because, see, a lot of people are going to forget about that EHEX as well. So I think the thing is, while like paying attention to Pulse Chain and everything on the Pulse ecosystem, we can't forget about Ethereum Hex.
Richard Hart, what's going on? He's tweeting, I didn't sacrifice for Pulse. I just got some Pulse X. I didn't sacrifice for Pulse Chain. I got Pulse X. So I was in late in that sense, but I'm not mad about it. So that's why I was asking about strategies because I'm thinking some PHEX turning it into
Pulse.
Pulse. Yes.
You know what I would do, honestly, is take this advantage to play with testnet v3 when it comes out in exactly 2 weeks. Play around with it and consider keeping your Pulsex, maybe bringing in or looking for the way you can understand like value that you can bring in if you're interested in accumulating Pulse. But don't use your Pulsex necessarily to get Pulse because that's like trading, your favorite friend for your favorite girlfriend.
Right, but I wasn't suggesting trading my Pulse X for Pulse Chain because I'm gonna hold that Pulse X because as far as I understand it will be auto staked, right? So it will be earning I guess something uh just for me holding it if I'm not mistaken, if I understood that correctly. If I didn't, someone please correct me. And but what I was thinking is the P hex that I get, maybe turning some of that into Pulse Chain.
I mean, no matter what way you look at it, somebody has a strategy for everything. I think, the swapping p-hex into Pulse is a decent play because when you look at all of these copied ERC20s that are going to come over, well, yeah, they're going to come over, but are they going to have any vibrancy or are people just going to dump them for their Pulse? So the interesting thing about p-hex is we know almost for certain, I mean, for all intents and purposes, we know for certain that that's going to have a community behind it and most likely economic energy behind it. So you can almost, and look, not financial advice, just speculating, you can almost guarantee that PX is going to have some value on the other side. And so I don't think it's a horrible play to get PHEX in anticipation to swap it for Pulse. But the issue is a lot of people are probably making that play. So the play for myself that I think about is what copied ERC20s are going to come over that could be sleepers, like what tokens may have value on the other side that no one is thinking about. And I have some ideas. I'm going to keep them close to the vest. I'm going to be a little selfish, but that's the frame of mind that I'm approaching the fork in. What are the sleeper copies? So first of all, there is no p ETH. ETH becomes Pulse. So it's wherever you see ETH, you'll now see Pulse. There is no p ETH. You will see wrapped ETH on the Pulse chain, but it's not p ETH in the way you're thinking about it. So if you have one ETH in your wallet, you're going to now have one Pulse in your wallet, right? See, it's a conversion.
What is different is that we've had effectively nearly 2 years of understanding, commentary, conversations like tonight, conversations with whether it's Richard or other people that have worked inside a blockchain space for a long time. And we have a community that basically is going to support both through ramps and basically dexes that can show accurate price feeds and fiat bridging and things like that by different community members. That didn't happen when it came to Ethereum proof of work, or I think it's called Ethereum Fair. So those are also system state of Ethereum that happened where people got forked coins or duplications of their coins. But there was not a lot of infrastructure from community or support by communities from Ethereans that said, hey, I'm going to go over to Ethereum proof of work, and that's where all my secondary coins are going to exist and make it popular. They didn't really have that. It was kind of, in my opinion, thrown together at the last second when Ethereum made their merger known and it occurred to go to proof of stake. So it's different. And you said something which was, will your Ethereum on the fork exist on the Pulse chain? Yes, it's called Pulse. That's what KG was saying. So the gas token or the reference that you call ETH or ETH gas or Ethereum as a network or Ethereans, all that is a system. And that system is basically the entire state of that system, all NFTs on Ethereum, all smart contracts on Ethereum, all the dexes on Ethereum, all the tokens and ERC20s on Ethereum. All of those will basically exist a second time, and that will be called Pulse Chain. So all of those things replicate. However, there are communities that will probably embrace Pulse Chain and say, wow, we've got this free thing, which is our code that we developed, such as maybe Link or maybe DAI or Uniswap as a smart contract DEX. There's different developers that have created things on Ethereum. And quite honestly, a lot of those developers won't care and they won't participate and they won't necessarily do anything with the code that they developed. But their community might, and their community can decide to throw up what's called front ends or ways to engage the smart contracts that will exist on Pulse Chain. So if the developers don't put it together, if it really is true crypto, meaning it doesn't require a admin key of some sort or something like that can be changed to basically revoke, then it will exist. And then it's up to individuals. Maybe they're fans of is Shiba a token that's on Ethereum? I think it is. But maybe they're very, very happy with SHIB, and they think that price discovery of going from effectively.
It's not on Ethereum actually, and they crashed today. I think they have some trouble.
Yeah, I think that they did a different blockchain or Shibarium or something like that. But like as far as I understand, they were an ERC20.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. So all I'm getting at is, people that supported the price discovery and the price ratcheting up of just about everything, I guess everything in cryptocurrency, because everything had zero value at the beginning. So communities are what add value. They add value by creating interfaces, by talking about brand, by sharing an idea about whether it's decentralization or yield on staking or all these other narratives. So it's really the community that gives value to anything. And on the launch of Pulse Chain, you have very high engagement because there is effectively a grassroots growth of hex and hexagons espoused by the founder of Richard Hart. And we have overperformed the market when classic memes of how to create value in cryptocurrency weren't available to us. So we didn't have a lot of centralized exchange promotion by KuCoin or Binance or Coinbase or Bittrex or Gemini. And yet we still went 10,000x in our history, right? So like that, those values of and those personality types that are engaged with Hex are probably the majority stakeholders in Pulse Chain and Pulsex as well. So like you can look at that and say, you know, this might be a good value proposition. And then what KG was saying was, you know, the sleeper accounts, the sleeper opportunities that some people may not be looking at as intensely may not be the people that are going to get a copy of their hex and have p hex and then trade for something that they know about but maybe didn't sacrifice for, such as Pulse Chain or Pulsex, you know, to participate in the same sort of swapping that other hexagons or other people that have known about Richard Hart for a while probably participated in. So like some will say, what's the community that does have opportunity, but they're not aware of it yet or engaged in it yet because it hasn't made the big noise yet, right? As far as what Pulse Chain will do. So when you start to see charts talk about the price of Pulse Chain and you see it on a central exchange, or you see, you know, charts and references all over Twitter and YouTube content about PulseX or Hex, you know, basically born again on a low transaction cost L1, you know, as far as Pulse Chain's narrative. That's probably going to get attention, and it probably will get attention from people that are not aware of Richard Hart ecosystem, but they do have copies of ERC20s and their keys work just like they do on their MetaMask for Ethereum engaging. They just changed their RPC settings. So like that may be a really big opportunity. That's what KG is saying. But what does that mean? That means that if KG wants to corner a market effectively or buy some percentage with his participation on the Pulse Chain network, however he wants to do it, it's probably in his best interest to talk with those communities and make them aware that there are their coins are over there too, that they have it too, right? Just like early hexagons, like the reason that we have hundreds of thousands of people in the community now is because somebody talked to somebody else. Richard first started talking in YouTube, and then people started listening in Telegram spaces and voice chats. Your direct engagement with people that do not know. And that's what opportunity really is. You're just asking how many people know about something that has value or is beginning value versus how many people will know about it in the future.
Is Pulse X, Pulse Chain, the Pulse Network, Hex looking to replace Bitcoin and Ethereum, or are they looking to support it, supplement it? Because can it sustain what's going to happen eventually? I don't know if in our lifetime, but eventually crypto is going to topple the centralized financial system as we know it today. And, you know, we're going to be transacting in crypto. And is Hex, Pulse Chain, the Pulse Network able to sustain that amount of transaction and activity on its network like Ethereum currently does? But when it gets too active, when too many people are transacting and being active on the network, you know, it slows down and there's problems. Now Hex I know has been has worked flawlessly since its inception, and I predict the Pulse network will work the same way. But if we do get that massive influx of activity, will it be able to sustain it?
Those are very good questions. So, like, there's a market that's created. And when you're saying something along the lines of Bitcoin or Ethereum, or why do they have value, you know, and historically, it is because people create the value. They launch an idea into the public, and then some people turn their nose up and say, "That's silly. Why would I trade dollars for a cyber coin, a gaming token? You know, why would I do that?" So is Pulse Chain competition or is it collaboration, right? It's a fork of existing code that has battle tests to it, right? That has a lot of, you know, millions, I think over 1 million lines of code in Ethereum. So like you have a lot of code, a lot of invested intellectual interest that is effectively, because of open source, being copied, right? It's able to be copied, permitted to be copied. And that those copies we're calling Pulse Chain has a few variables that are a little bit different. Like, so Richard is tweaking some of those things, and developers are tweaking some of those things, but it will be effectively very similar. One of the things that is different is that it is the rate the ratio of PLS or pulse chain to the ratio to Ethereum as far as the fork is effectively 10,000 times as much, or a million percent, I think. So like that means that economically, when you want to do a trade on Uniswap in Ethereum of one NFT for a bunch of USDC ERC20s, right? You're making a trade. You're selling an NFT, or you're saying you want to speculate on a new coin. You have a gas cost. And Ethereum, when it's $1,500 or whatever the cost is now, that might be expensive when it's popular at the moment, or the network is congested at the moment. That's because bidders are saying, I want my transaction to go through now. And they are overbidding so that they force their transaction through ahead of other people that are not paying as much, are not willing to pay as much. That's why a transaction becomes expensive when the network is congested. On Pulse Chain, when the fork happens, when Pulse Chain exists, all those same things are over there as far as the fork of the system state. But on a dollar cost per transaction ratio, it's going to be 1/10,000th the cost, effectively, of Ethereum, at least on fork. So that means that if it costs you, $50 to do a transaction when the network is busy on Ethereum, then it's like, a percentage of a penny on a Pulse chain, right? Until it becomes popular. And initially, it won't have 2 million people participating on it the way that Ethereum does. It'll have a few 100,000 people, but it might become more popular because it is lower transaction cost. And it might become more popular because the Ethereans that believe in Ethereum as a network, and like the DEX of Uniswap, and like monkey pictures and music files as NFTs, then they are going to have those same things also available, and they might decide to assign a price to it. They might decide to say, I'm willing to pay a couple of pennies, but not a few $100s, because their monkey picture on Ethereum is worth a few $100s, and they have the same copy of code on Pulse Chain, and it might go from a couple of pennies to 50 pennies or $5. Right? So that's what price discovery is all about. And that's why we think that Pulse Chain will be popular. Is it competition? Well, it's not being framed even popularly by us as a Ethereum killer, because we see it as horizontally scaling value, instead of only saying, one central place to transact is what's necessary, and Ethereum only has value, whereas any competition that launches a network like Ethereum has to convince economic energy to migrate and move over to their system and become Cardanites, or become, Litecoin maximalists, or whatever it is. Like there's been a narrative as long as I've been in crypto, since 2017, that we're going to launch the better code that's faster, cheaper, nobody's over here, nobody's doing anything yet, but we're going to convince you, Mr. Bitcoin, and you, Mr. Ethereum, to give up your religion and give up your moat of value and come over to ours instead. Like, we want you to become Protestant instead of Jewish, right? It becomes religion in a lot of ways. So like, we see this as collaboration or synergy, because everybody gets copies of what they already have. And if they choose to trade, then they will. And if they choose not to trade, then maybe value continues without their participation. And maybe in a year or 2 years or 3 years, they say, wow, that network over there sure is active. I wonder if I still have coins over there. And then they check and they say that they have some value that they didn't even participate in building. Like, that's how these things work. Bitcoin was the ICO contribution for Ethereum. At the time of Ethereum's ICO, one Bitcoin was 2,000 Ethereum, right? So one Bitcoin, on this narrative that a Bitcoin is worth right now 25 grand, I think. A single Bitcoin is 25,000. Well, what is 2,000 Ethereum worth? What is that worth? It's like $3 million, right? right? So like these things have a way of creating price based on community, narrative, communication, distribution of idea. These are all intangibles. These are just basically right now still speculation and people saying, I think it's cheap right now because it never existed before and nobody knows about it. And I'm going to buy a lot of it, right? And then market cycles of charts over time make people either more enthusiastic and they scoop up more, or it makes them less enthusiastic and they says, I don't know, like I'm not getting bought out and this doesn't have value to me, right? These are games. All these things are games to me.
Yeah, a lot of really great points brought up there, Funding Jim. And I like the way that you framed the value proposition. I agree with that.